So I just watched episode 7 of Granbelm. This is a little bit more informal format than I usually do. Not really going to go super in depth on like the greater structure of everything that's happening in the show. Just thought I'd do a quick video to talk about Granbelm because, and episode 7 in particular, because it seems like this show is probably one of the most criminally underrated shows of the season. And as far as I can tell, no one is really talking about it at all. Which leads me to wonder whether it's just enough anymore to just make a good show. And if you don't need some kind of like marketing buzz or something more, widespread appeal-ish to, get the show out in the world and to kind of get that, critical mass that you need to actually be successful with the show. Because the Studio Nexus that's making Granbelm is not perhaps the most well-known studio out there. Not really many people know about it. It's only done a few shows before, and the only reason I even gave this show a chance in the first place is because they made this show called Imoto Sai Irabai, or I Wish I Had a Little Sister or something like that, which is a show about like light novel writers and them just hanging out, and me just being a writer at heart. This show just completely got to me, and I loved it so much. I think it came out last year sometime, and since then they haven't really done anything big, and they've just been charging up, powering up in the background to do this show, which is Granbelm. And episode 7 of the show really, I think, kind of cemented why this show is worth watching to me. So in episode 7 of the show, just to do a quick recap, we have Ernesta and Anna, and they're like these two kind of adopted siblings. Ernesta's from a different magical family, and she's only been accepted into their family because she has this like super awesome latent magical power that they really want to use. And the way that magical houses, conglomerate power in this world is by joining different bloodlines together, and they brought Ernesta in because they want her to be part of their bloodline. And that's kind of like the background of the show. It's all about magical families and like fighting in this battle royale-esque thing. But Ernesta and Anna have had this like sibling rivalry ever since they started. And the dynamic, I would describe it, is most similar to probably something like Mozart and Salieri, where Mozart is this like, super gifted, just talented individual who can just write symphonies at the age of 8 or whatever it is. And Salieri is like his companion who stays by his side, but also is like super bitter and resentful of his success and what he's been able to do with his life. And I think that's the dynamic that these Ernesta and Anna are approaching. It's like Ernesta she doesn't even want her talent. She's like super gifted with magic, and she can basically do whatever she wants with magic in a world where magic technically isn't supposed to exist, but she can do all this stuff. And we really learned that in episode 6, where we learn that Anna's like her belief in herself as someone who has super magical powers is because Ernesta was standing behind her and helping her all along. Now, if you've seen a show like Ping Pong, this is the same dynamic between Peko and Smile, except Peko is the one who's super talented, and Smile is like also talented, but he just doesn't want to show it because he doesn't want to show up Peko. Not saying that this show is better than Ping Pong. Ping Pong is probably my favorite show of all time, so if you haven't seen Ping Pong, go watch Ping Pong. But in Granbelm, Ernesta's whole purpose in life is like to stand by Anna and to make her look good, until they realize that Ernesta's super magical and she can basically out-magic Anna at any given opportunity. And when Anna is taken into this Granbelm and she learns that she's not the most powerful, and Ernesta, who ran away from her family, comes back and tries to get the Granbelm wish for herself, Anna's like, you can't beat me. Like, I'm supposed to be the one who's supposed to be the most powerful. And the obsession got to such a degree after last episode, when her bubble was burst and she learned that she doesn't really have that much magical power, and her family was trying to protect her by not letting her into this whole Granbelm thing. That's what they gave her, the smaller magical stone and all that. We saw her steal the Fugo family's giant magical stone and be like, hey, I'm going to just blow up this whole thing. Even if in this episode 7 we see her tell her sister, even if I don't beat, even if I don't win Granbelm, I just want to make sure that Ernesta doesn't win, and I want to hurt her, and that's all that I want. So this unhealthy obsession has gone to this next level, and that's really what this episode is about. Even though there's like mechs fighting in it, and there's really cool, awesome, action scenes. There's like mechs have different powers that interact in cool ways and all that. At the end of the day, the fights are cool because they mean something in the show, and that's the best kind of fight scene, right? So we've had some other action shows this season, and that really hasn't been the case for those action shows, in my mind at least. And that's kind of why I feel like action shows are not my forte, but this type of action show where the action actually means something, and it's their final face-off after like 7 episodes of them going at it in like small skirmishes, and Ernesta just comes out and says like, oh, I was trying not to hurt you this entire time. Like, I didn't want to. I wanted you to just kind of realize by yourself that I could beat you at any time, so I don't want you to like be defeated. Like, just take the hint and just go away. But of course, Anna's not that type of person. She doesn't take hints like that. She just comes out with that giant stone. Probably some of the craziest action we've seen in this entire show so far. And of course, there has to be an ending. So at the very end of the episode, Anna falls. She gets stabbed from behind. Even that giant magical stone couldn't save her. Ernesta summons... There's like all bunch of like subplots within the fight. There's like she summons a spirit. And then Anna goes like fire and ice, all Todoroki on this thing. It just goes kind of nuts. It's crazy. The action is really good. But at the end of the day, it makes me wonder, like, what more does this show have to do to get people to notice? It has really good character designs. The art is very well done. The backgrounds are very well done. The music is passable to great sometimes. In the action scenes, it's kind of generically, like, big, loud horns and things like that. But in the softer moments, it does get, more specific and, like, to the show. But, like, what more do you need from this show? The action is good, the writing is good, there's a giant high-arcing story plot about magical families interacting. And it makes me wonder, like, if the small studios like Nexus are able to make a show like this and still don't get any kind of recognition. Because I feel like this is one of those shows that people are going to look back on in 2 or 3 years and be like, hey, that was a good show. For example, there was that show, like, about Rakugo, which got a lot of critical acclaim, but I don't know how many people actually went and watched it from that. But that was like a very niche product based on like a historical period piece about an art form that only exists in Japan. This is just a magical mech show with cute girls. It's probably the most mainstream formula you can make. And that's clearly why they chose this formula to make this show. Studio Nexus probably went something like, hey, we have been doing all these like slice of life comedy shows for so long. Wouldn't it be cool if we did an action show? And then they realized, like, even we're not really known for doing action shows. And even if we weren't doing action shows, we're not really a big studio at all. So we probably can't pull that kind of like attention with some kind of tent pole, just huge, action release. We got to do something that'll appeal to the masses. So let's get out here with magical girl mechs. And it still wasn't enough. No one's talking about this show. I've only seen a few other channels talk about it at all. No one's covering it week to week per se. And it doesn't help that it comes out on the same day as Dr. Stone, which is the most popular show of the season. If it came out at any other point in the week, I think it would have done way better. It's going up against Dr. Stone and Fire Force, probably 2 of the most popular shows this season. Let me know if you want me to check out Fire Force, by the way. I haven't even watched 1 episode of that. I just assumed it was an action show, but some people are saying it's like the next My Hero Academia or the next Soul Eater or whatever. So let me know if you want me to check that out. And this show, it's like, if this is the future of anime, that like pretty much every studio, there are only a few big studios left, and everything else is just tiny studios trying to make things work because they got, disillusioned with how it worked at the big studios, and they're like, they were overworked and they didn't want to do that anymore, and they broke off and made their own studios to try and make it right this time. But what ended up happening was they had to take all these really crappy gigs to put, keep the lights on, because that's just how anime works. There isn't a lot of margin, and they're made with like paper thin budgets for so much animation to be done. And at the end of the day, when a studio is successful enough to make an action show like this, I mean, for them to even make this, it requires a tremendous amount of bravery and tremendous amount of commitment to like put all this money, because action shows just cost more. They have to do more like effect animation, all this crazy stuff. And to do all this and to still not, get the kind of attention that they probably deserve. Now, I'm not saying Granbelm is some like all-time historically good anime, because I feel like once you cross a certain threshold, you do get, enough attention. But like this studio is something that's pretty close to my heart, because they made one of my favorite anime of the past couple of years. And then they make this anime, which is probably Fate, but better. Like, it's just a better version of Fate to me. It's not as edgy. It's more like relationship oriented. There's way less backstory to catch up on, and they still don't get any attention for it. And it really kind of grinds my gears that this is happening in the first place. In episode 7, we're almost more than halfway done with this show. I'm pretty sure this is only a 12-episode show. It is. I checked recently. It's only a 12-episode show. And we're kind of getting to the final arc, like the big bad of the series, which was Anna. Up until now, she was shown as just being like this disillusioned child who didn't want to accept that her place in the family had been replaced by an outsider. She was never able to come to terms with that. And at the same time, she like tried to take the power back that she felt she had lost by like taking control of this big magical stone and trying to put Ernesta in her place as she saw it, but it didn't end up working, and she got put in her place instead. Now she's out of Granbelm and she can't win anymore, and she's let down her family, and God knows where she's going to go from here. And then you have like still 4 or 5 characters left who legitimately want to win this thing for good reasons. And then there's Mangetsu, who like has no reason to want to win it other than she wants to prove to herself that she's worth like a worthy person. Like she doesn't think of herself as being worth anything, and this is the way that she proves to herself that she's worth something in the world. Like everyone says she's just normal and mediocre, and she's trying to prove to everyone that she's not. And Shingetsu's doing it for whatever reason. Everyone has their own reasons. And we're getting to the point where the two who made an alliance, knowing full well that at the end of the day only one person could win, we're getting to that pointy end of the stick where we're going to find out who ends up winning this thing. And this is great interpersonal drama with fights that mean something, set up in this cool universe where like they travel to an alternate dimension to have magical mech fights with cool transformation sequences and great character designs. And somehow that still isn't enough to get people's attention. I don't really know what you have to do in 2019 anymore. I think it's becoming like a franchise. This is an original property and it's got zero attention whatsoever. Meanwhile, like the first arc of Vinland Saga is, raking in the moolah somewhere just because it's based on a pre-existing property and it's done by the Attack on Titan studio. Like, yes, they do good work and they do good animation, and I'm aware of all that, but anime is a medium on its own, and I love seeing original properties, in anime. It's some of the best anime of all time have been original properties. We're not really encouraging that kind of innovation at all. It just worries me to see what will happen in 2020. It's clearly going to be a huge year for Japan's economy as a whole. Like the Olympics are going to be there. Clearly some huge tie-in stuff is going to happen with the Olympics. We'll see what ends up happening, but like I really wish this show had gotten better reception than it has. I'm trying my best to get it out there, so I'm doing this video right now. I just feel like it deserves more eyeballs. And if you haven't started watching it yet and I've convinced you, and you're not really a week-to-week watcher, like some of my friends aren't week-to-week watchers, I would say wait for it all to be over and then watch it all. It's still just as good. You don't really have to worry about missing anything week-to-week. It's a very like methodically paced, slow burny type of show. So it's, in my opinion, it's worth watching it just back-to-back. That's really it for this little mini rant that I went on. If you haven't been watching Granbelm already, try to watch it. It's a good show. Support people who do, things that are risky, because it's hard to make anime in this world. And we like anime so much, we might as well support the people who put their all out there for us to watch. So that's it for this episode. I'll see you next time with something more cheerful perhaps. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the next video.